He ran against Nixon. It wasn't decided until noon the next day when the flurry of votes showed up in West Virginia and Illinois and put him over the top. There was questions about whether he really won or not. Nixon didn't challenge it. Different administration, and just accepted it. And so, but he was charismatic. It was controversial. It was the first Catholic elected. He was concerned about that. That's why he picked Lyndon Johnson as the vice president. To carry Texas and to counter that concern about, in those days, he would be taking orders from the Vatican and things like that. It was a different era. But he was charismatic. And so while he barely won, he became
It's my grandparents. It's my grandfather passed away.
He was the most charismatic president one can say, certainly of the century. That's up for debate, but he really had
Baby Shakespeare. And baby's first sound.
Hold on. His popularity was on the wane, and there were questions whether he would be reelected or not. But despite all that,
baby Einstein, baby Shakespeare, world of poetry, baby Shakespeare, play, repeat play, languages, English, French, Spanish.
In the 1964 election, and without it, he may not be reelected.
Bonus material about baby Einstein.
Governor Conley was in the motorcade. He and his wife with the president, Jacqueline, and he wanted to make an appearance. He wanted to do all he could to help carry Texas.
Well, let's get into the weather and climate. How did that set the stage for the JFK assassination?
Well, it rained. It was raining early. When the motorcade was about to begin, skies had cleared, and of course there was a bubble top to keep the rain off. But the bubble top was not bulletproof. President Kennedy said, "Is it raining downtown? What's the weather like there?" And it came back as sunny here also. Of course, they didn't have the AccuWeather app in those days.
They didn't. That would have been very helpful.
Right, radar and Minutecast and all that. But so, since it was sunny downtown as well as at the airport, Kennedy said, "Lose the bubble top." And of course, he rode without any protection.
We're going to introduce a little politics, just a little bit. Let's say Kennedy remained president. Would Republicans like Nixon and Reagan and the Bushes have been elected Kennedy's successors as president?
Well, this is a fascinating thing for me.
Okay,
so President Kennedy questioned whether he'd be reelected. If he wasn't, of course, the Republicans would win. But once he was assassinated, there was tremendous sympathy for Johnson, who was his vice president. And Johnson used that to get all kinds of legislation passed that would not have passed otherwise. The Civil Rights Bill, Medicaid, Medicare, all the social programs, what he called the Great Society. And by itself, it might have been okay, but he also escalated the Vietnam War. Kennedy was more of a fiscal conservative. Probably wouldn't have spent as much. And also Kennedy, since he had been burned by the Bay of Pigs, a failed invasion of Cuba, was very skeptical of the advice he was getting from the military advisors and the generals. He did not want to escalate the Vietnam War. And Johnson, expertise was in local politics, U.S. Politics on the social side, knew nothing about international, nothing about military strategy and so on. And so he took the advice of his generals and escalated the Vietnam War, and that sowed his demise. He was very popular, got all these things passed in a couple of years after the assassination, but by 1968, there was all kind of demonstrations against the Vietnam War. He could have run again because you can serve 2 terms of being elected. So the year and a half he was president as vice president didn't count. So he could have run in 68, but he was so unpopular by then because of the Vietnam War. He chose not to run and died several years later. And so Nixon came back from the dead, so to speak. Nobody thought he had, and won the election. And if you look at it, except for Jimmy Carter, who was a one-term president and only got elected probably because of
Discovery cards, puppet shows, playoff, Bard's big introduction, flower power, entering the jungle, jungle friends.
Some of the what-ifs
for snowfall, cow's lunch,
President John F. Kennedy was shot from a window at the
toy chest, languages.
The sixth-floor museum at Dealey Plaza is located there today. To give us a little more perspective on the Kennedy assassination is the museum curator, Stephen Fagan. Stephen, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
There's been much discussion about the limousine's bubble top, if it was on. Was that bulletproof?
It was not, actually. It was just a plain plexiglass inclement weather top for that vehicle. It was about 6 sections of clear plastic that snapped together on the top of the car, and then there was an optional canvas cover that could go over that.